There's this idea floating around spiritual circles that once you wake up, you're supposed to stay deeply connected all the time. You should constantly be meditating, channeling, noticing signs, downloading messages, reading synchronicities, and keeping yourself spiritually on at all times. But honestly, sometimes spiritual awakening gets loud, really loud. So loud that moments that once felt peaceful and expansive can eventually start feeling overwhelming, like sitting in a crowded room where everybody's talking at once. Some voices are saying different things, some are saying the same thing from completely different perspectives. Either way, eventually your nervous system, your heart, your soul can just go, okay, enough. I need some quiet. About 12 years ago, I went deep into channeling, connecting with spirit, opening myself up to the energies beyond myself. And when I moved to Missouri, things intensified in a big way. Meeting Alora deepened everything even more. It felt magical at times, beautiful, expansive. But after a few years, something shifted. I started asking myself why I was constantly opening outward for guidance when I already carried the same connection within me. And if I'm being honest, there were moments I became frustrated, even angry with spirit and the way life was unfolding. So I stepped away for a while, not because I stopped believing, but because I needed to breathe. I needed silence. I needed to reconnect with my own energy, my own awareness, my own relationship with the universe without all the noise surrounding it. This episode is When Spiritual Awakening Gets Too Loud, and I'm Yahweh.
Welcome to Aligned AF, real talk for evolving souls with Yahweh Kent. Join Yahweh for honest conversations on spiritual growth, the messiness of life, and how to move through it all at a higher frequency. So grab a cup of tea and let's sail in. This is Aligned AF, and here's Yahweh.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Aligned AF. I am Yahweh. It is so good and quite honestly, a little awkward being back. I had a very long hiatus. My last episode for season 1 was at the beginning of December. And, here it is, middle of May. And I'm finally getting back behind the microphone. So here it is, season 2, episode 1. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little worried that maybe I don't have what I was developing throughout season 1. I don't know that I have the comfort level that I had created for myself. So here I am, open, vulnerable, ready to rock with a new episode. And I'm kind of hoping I'll figure it all out again. We're talking about spiritual awakening and how it can become extremely overwhelming at times, and how it's okay to kind of step back, kind of take a break, kind of reassess what it is you're going through. Spiritual awakening can be really overstimulating. It's got you reach a point where maybe there's too many teachings, too many perspectives, too much seeking all the time. How many times or have you realized you stopped yourself and you say, Jesus, there's another thing I want to do. There's another thing I want to learn about. There's another class I want to take. There's another master I want to listen to. There's another guru I want to follow. And it becomes so much that all the messages become this jumbled mess. It's like constant energetic openness, and it becomes exhausting. And you know what? It's okay for you to realize that. It's kind of like, I mentioned this in the opening. It's kind of like being in a crowded room where everyone's talking at once. And how about you guys? But when I was in college, I went to a lot of parties, and I mean, wall to wall people. Some of you remember what that's like, even high school. And there's no like real solid conversation going on. It could be, a bunch of people over here talking about one thing, a bunch of people over there talking about another, some random dude in the corner talking to himself. But there's so much going on that you can't really make head nor tails of the whole thing. So with your spiritual journey, that can happen. And even the helpful voices can become overwhelming. Sometimes your soul needs to step back and enjoy some silence more than it needs to keep taking on more information. So let's take a minute and talk about kind of the beginning of what your spiritual journey may or may not have looked like. And I'm speaking in generalities, and of course, I'm speaking from my own experience. But I really believe that a lot of what I have to say is going to be really resonant with a lot of listeners. So, at the beginning of your awakening, your spiritual journey, where you're on this path and you're looking for answers, and you've got so many questions, and you start opening up to all these different modalities. You start thinking, maybe I need to meditate, maybe I need to read about Buddha, maybe I need to spend time reading some of the Dalai Lama's stuff. Or maybe it's, getting into tarot decks, or getting into astrology, or finding, just all these possibilities that are out there, because there are thousands upon thousands of modalities out there that you can get connected with. And I'm not saying any of them are bad. I'm not saying any of them are perfect. I'm just saying they're out there. And I'm saying that some of them are going to help you a great deal. Some of them are not going to resonate with you at all. And too many of them is going to be too much. But at the beginning of your journey, when things are interesting and cool, and you start picking up signs and seeing synchronicities, you start connecting with people who can channel, and those channeling messages really speak to you at your soul level, like something inside you begins to wake up. You start feeling like spiritually plugged in. And the excitement of that, the excitement of discovering there's more to reality than what you really thought it was. There's more to the reality of everything than waking up and going to work and making a paycheck and paying your rent and buying some food and maybe going out with some friends once in a while and finding the right spouse and starting a family and buying a car and getting a house. And all of those things are wonderful, human, nurturing, amazing things. And yet there's so much more out there. There's so much more beyond the human, beyond what we see in our physical world, what we experience in tactile ways. There's so much more out there. And it's so cool at the beginning of things. And you start really diving into it. And that's what I did, 12 or 13 years ago. I really dove into messaging, and I became a Reiki master teacher, and I was going to events where we did readings for each other. I never really got into the tarot cards so much, but I was doing psychometry, and I was doing just straight readings for people. Sometimes in a small group of like 5 or 6, sometimes in a room of 25 or 30 people. I was doing gallery readings. I was doing all this amazing stuff, and I was jazzed, I was excited. I could feel the energy just pouring through me. And when I came away from it, and there was like, a particularly good reading or a really good connection with spirit, and I would think to myself, this shit's so cool and so real and so beyond what we normally see in this world, that it just became this thing that I wanted all the time. And I started searching for different ways I could dig deeper into it, and reading books and watching documentaries and going to people's houses when they said they had spirits and helping them connect with those spirits, going to cemeteries and trying to connect with the dead and see ghosts. And I've seen some shit, folks. I've seen some amazing stuff. I've had one-on-one conversations with spirit. I've had spirit literally stand next to me, see me, touch me. I could feel them. I could sense them. I could smell them. I could almost feel their breath. I mean, I've had some crazy, fun stuff happen. I've had spirit energy shoot across a room of 25 people, and everybody saw it happen. I've seen it come across the floor, up my leg, through my body, and out through my crown. And everybody in the room saw it happen. So I've done some cool stuff. And when you do that cool stuff, when things are amazing and fun and interesting, you want more. It's like you're getting juiced. You're getting, honestly, you get a little addicted to it and you start digging in deeper. So I was doing all of this in Massachusetts for a couple of years. And then I moved to Missouri. And my intent on moving to Missouri was to completely kind of shift my life away from the 9 to 5 that, I had been working my entire life. And I walked away from a job. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I sold everything that didn't fit in my pickup truck. Most of you have heard that story before. And I moved to Missouri with the intent of starting my life on a spiritual path completely. Like, just put all the old human shit behind me. And I was going to be a coach. I was going to be what I call the truth coach, as opposed to a life coach. My concept is very, very, it's different from being a life coach. It's not like being a trainer. It's more like, digging deep into those truths in our lives that sometimes we're afraid to connect with. So anyways, my intent coming to Missouri was to kind of dig into that spiritual aspect of my life and just make it my entire life. Set myself up in Reiki practice, started getting clients, connected with a facility in Unity Village where I could do my Reiki practice and do my coaching and teach meditation and just really throw myself into this. And I got a full-time job to pay the bills at a prayer line, at the Silent Unity prayer line, which was to me more spirituality, because it wasn't just about God and Jesus and all that Christian stuff. It was about the truth of God, the truth of oneness with everything that is in the universe. And I was digging in deep, and things became deeper and they became more intense, and spiritual experiences became more frequent because you become immersed in it, and meeting Alara changed everything to become even more intensified, because she was in a spiritual crisis and I wanted so badly to help her that I was creating tools. I was connecting with spirit. The very first time I met Metatron, he came through me, filled my body. Like, I literally felt my chest expand, felt my shoulders spread out. I could feel wings on my back. And I could feel the presence of Metatron just take over my body. It's sort of like, here, step aside, let me do this. And Metatron came in and showed me how to create these tools to help Laura, which now have expanded into helping so many more people. The Metatron Cube attunements, the Metatron Cube installations, have helped so many people at this point. And we continue with that work today because it is so important to have a spiritual container, an energetic container that's made from source energy to give you a safe space to experience your spiritual awakening, to experience a safe place to deal with your trauma or to deal with your anxiety or to deal with your physical problems. And, that's another episode. But that is something that's available still. And you can check out my website to get more information about that, or, see me on Facebook. Anyways, meeting Laura, things became, even deeper, even more intense. The spiritual experiences more frequent, like I said, because I was in it. I was in it 100%. And I was in it for a few years. But then I had reached a point where I was feeling emotionally and spiritually exhausted. I was wondering why spirit wasn't fixing things for me, why I was opening myself up to all these channeling sessions. I was writing constantly channeled messages. I was having people to my house and channeling all these different archangels and high masters and all these energies, delivering messages to people. And I was open to all this stuff, and I was trying to figure out why spirit wasn't fixing my day-to-day shit, the stuff that was going on in my life. I was wondering why spirit wasn't helping me in my day-to-day stuff. They wanted me to be open to all these channeled messages. They wanted me to be there for them, and I was 24 hours a fucking day. 2:30 in the morning, I'd be channeling messages and talking to Alora about all these things, and spirit would come through me. And sometimes spirit came through on what most of us will call extraterrestrial levels and would take over my body. Shit's real, folks. I mean, this is not stuff that, I don't think I belong in a loony bin. But there were times where they would take over my body and forget that I needed to breathe. And Alara had to be there to shake me and to say to spirit, hey, his body needs to live. He needs to breathe to survive. And there were times where I didn't breathe for minutes. And I can't hold my breath that long. I've had one lung since I was 28 years old. I can hold my breath maybe 30 seconds, probably less. And I went minutes without breathing because spirit was coming through me all the time. And I kept saying to myself, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm open to receiving, and why is nothing better in my life? And I started realizing that spiritual awareness and being open to that doesn't remove the human pain. So I started questioning why I was constantly opening to these energies outside myself. Why was I searching outward for wisdom that I already carried inside me? See, a realization came to me. I realized that I have the same access to the same answers that every single spirit I was channeling has. Because we're all one. I had been saying we're all one. I had been saying I'm one with God. I had been saying that God is everything, therefore I am. But I wasn't really believing it. And finally, something clicked inside me. And I said, if that's what I really believe, then why the hell am I opening myself up to all these outside energies when in fact the energies are the same as me? The energies, I have the exact same access, and so do you. You have the same access to all that exists in the universe. The problem is getting all the human shit out of the way so that you can hear it. The human shit is the loud party with scores of people all talking at the same time. And you need to shut that stuff up in order to hear the answers that you're looking for. If everybody's talking at once and one person across the room is the one that's looking at you and telling you the answer that you want to hear, you can't hear them. You need everybody else to shut the hell up so that you can hear that one thing. And I was at that point where everybody was talking and nobody was answering my questions. And that's when I realized that it was time for me to step away from that and to look for my own answers, because I had that wisdom inside me. I had access to the truth stream. I had access to everything that existed. And I was pissed. I was angry and I was disappointed. I started feeling disconnected from spirit. I started feeling frustrating. I felt let down. I felt tired of interpreting every little thing around me spiritually. Everything doesn't always have to be a spiritual thing. It doesn't have to. Sometimes a shadow is just a shadow. Sometimes a cloud is just a cloud. But everything had a spiritual meaning, and I was just exhausted from it. So I stepped away. Now, I want to be clear. Stepping away from spirituality is not about losing your path. It's not about disbelieving in anything. Sometimes it's just about integrating what you've already learned and taking some time in the silence, taking some time away from the chatter to sort through it all, to find the answers that are in there. Because all of it that's been said is kind of left on a transcript in your head, so to speak. So, you like this podcast, for example. So I do this podcast, and when it's done downloading and it's fully, set and the editing is finished, there's a transcript, word for word, of everything that is said. Well, that's the way life is. It's all in there. It's not easy to access, and sometimes our brains get in the way. We have maybe some physical limitations, maybe some emotional limitations. But the truth is, the answers are all in there. And you're not going to find those answers when all that other chatter's going on. So sometimes you just need to step away. So I stepped away for a while. And I'll be honest with you, that really disappointed my wife. She felt like I had pulled away, not only from spirit, but from my commitment to her and I. I had not, but I could not express it. I could not at that time make her understand, because truthfully, I didn't understand. So, we were going through a rough patch. We even separated for a while because of this. And I had to spend time alone. I had to dig in, and I went through a time where I stopped meditating. I stopped reading about spirituality. I stopped looking for answers. I just said, fuck it, I'm just going to be human for a while. And it's okay to take that break, because the truth is, when you're on a spiritual path and you take that break, there's still a part that continues. There's still a part of you that continues kind of evolving, kind of sorting through, kind of allowing your roots to take place. Because It's kind of like giving a plant a shot of miracle grow. It's going to spurt up and it's going to grow really, really big on the outside, but the roots need time to really absorb the nutrients and spread out. Otherwise, the plant's going to just become top heavy and fall over. Well, we go through those same things where we fill ourselves with all this spirituality and we just suck it in and suck it in and suck it in and suck it in. And then we tip over and we pop like a balloon that's had too much water in it too fast. So I took that time and I finally reached a point where I started to understand that I had that full connection myself, that I could still channel, but I could channel myself. I could channel, I would call it my high self, but I could channel directly into the truth stream. I could channel directly into spirit, directly into everything in the universe, and a lot of the time find the answers that I'm looking for, or answers that somebody else may be looking for. And that became a lot easier for me. And once I realized at that point that things could slide back into a spiritual path without it being overwhelming and without it being all outside stuff, then my meditation practice became simpler and more often. I wasn't chasing after answers or chasing after spirit to find my fucking answers. I wasn't performing the way I was before spiritually. I didn't have to always be the guy who channels. I could just be me and just be at one and just speak to people in that way. I found that I wasn't needing answers as much because they were there available to me. I was more present with myself. I had more stillness in myself and I had more trust in myself. And I think sometimes we confuse spiritual intensity with spiritual depth. So here's the thing. Everything that I just described to you was spiritual intensity. Okay. Spiritual intensity is when you're overwhelming yourself and you may not even realize you're doing it. You're scrolling through TikTok or you're on Facebook or you're watching a documentary and you go, wow, that looks really interesting. I want to take that class. I want to study that modality. I want to learn about breathing. I want to learn about yoga. I want to learn about channeling or tarot or astrology. I want more. I want more. I want more. And it becomes spiritual intensity. Spiritual depth is when you find that one thing and you truly dig into it. And then maybe you find another and you dig into that and you really spend time with it and you see if it resonates with you and you see how it can be a valuable tool in your life. And that spiritual depth is what becomes the thing that drives you. And it doesn't drive you the way the intensity did. In the intensity, you're on a fucking motorcycle and you've got the throttle full out. And the truth is, you don't really know how to ride that motorcycle. That's its spiritual intensity. And you're just going through stuff. And it may feel cool. That speed is amazing. And it may be a lot of fun. But at some point, you're going to fucking crash. And that's not going to be fun. Spiritual depth is a different drive. Spiritual depth is the comfort of a nice walk, a ride on a bike, a drive in the country, a hike through the woods, or just sitting by a stream. That's and again, the physical things that I'm describing are wonderful, but they're also metaphors. So on an energetic level, that's what the spiritual depth is. And that's when it becomes the realization that I've got this. This is the path that I really want. And then you don't have to share it with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. You don't have to, you know, be the one out there that says, "Look what I can do." You don't have to constantly be advertising, because you're at one with what you're doing. You know, so you learn to trust your own connection with Source. You're not dependent on spirit outside of you, answers and energies outside of you. You don't need constant external validation. Okay, you don't need spirit to validate an answer that you just got. You don't need anybody outside of you to say, "Oh, look at what you can do." You know, you don't need any of that anymore. There's an understanding inside yourself that consciousness itself is sacred. Now think about that. Consciousness itself is the sacred thing, not the pursuit of it, but the consciousness and the awareness and the understanding of all that is. That's the sacred thing, not the pursuit of it. Recently, I've reconnected with Metatron. I've decided I'm in a safe enough space for myself that I can reconnect with Metatron. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm realizing that there are a lot of people out there that really could benefit from the tools that I've created as the architect. The architect is something that Metatron pretty much, I don't know, dubbed me, like, you know, like knighting. I am the architect of Metatron. I create the Metatron cubes. And for anybody who's seen a Metatron cube, it's a Merkaba, basically, but multi-dimensional. It's not just a flat design, but it's something that can fully surround your essence, your body, your soul. And I've found that there's more people out there that really can benefit from this. And my wife Alara has been kind of championing the Metatron cubes and the work for that, and she's been doing an amazing job. She's an incredible architect herself. But we've recently had a friend who needed something really unique created, and I came in and I saw what it was and I saw what it needed to be, and I reached out to Metatron to say, "Hey, this is something brand new." And Metatron was like, "You've got this, but I'm with you." So I'm not reaching out to Metatron in desperation like I had before, because I don't need saving. Nobody needs saving, but I'm reaching out because I'm in alignment with myself. I'm coming from a healthier relationship with spirit, and I want to join with that energy that Metatron is, that power that Metatron is, to really create some amazing tools for people going forward. So I am becoming the architect again. I'm stepping back into that part of my life, creating cubes, allowing the energy of Metatron to move through me as a partnership, instead of surrendering myself completely to him. I want to remind y'all that stepping away from spirit is actually stepping closer to yourself. Okay, you need to, every once in a while, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you feel like no matter what I do, no matter what I try, nothing fucking works, then maybe it's time to stop shoving more stuff down your own throat. Stop putting more shit on your plate and just spend time with yourself. Step closer inward. Okay? All right? It's okay if you pull away from spirit a little bit. It's okay if you stopped meditating for a little while. It's okay if things get quiet, because it doesn't mean you failed at anything. You know, the path isn't linear. Okay. You don't have to be constantly going in this one direction. There are so many branches, so many angles, so many tangents. It's like, your roots. Your roots don't go just straight down. It doesn't work that way. They spread out to give you balance, to give you stability. And your path is the same thing. It's got to spread out. It's like the blood vessel, or the veins in your body, your bloodstream, your nervous system. All of that spreads out. Think about the way nature is. You look at the root system, you look at the trees and how they're all spread out in multiple directions. You look at a lightning strike and how it cracks across the sky. You look at the veins on a leaf. You look at our nervous system in our body and how it all spreads out. All of this stuff is not coincidence. It's truly the nature of things, that's the ideal way to work. So your path itself can't be linear and work. It has to be a little spread out. It has to be, touching on multiple things at the same time. And then after your break, after you stop for a while, after you pull away, and then you try to reconnect with spirit, I don't want you to think for a second that you're just going back to the way things were, because you're not going back to who you were before. You're reconnecting as someone completely new. It's impossible to go back to who you were before and to have the same connection you had with spirit before. Can't happen, because you're a totally different person now, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. So that new connection is because you are new as well. There's so much more I could talk about on this subject, and there's going to be more podcasts about this, and it's good to be back in the saddle again, so to speak, back behind the mic to share some things with you. And please, please, please reach out to me, alignedafpodcast@gmail.com. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, if you have an idea for an episode of the show, if you have something interesting to share, and maybe you want to be a guest. I'm always looking for interesting guests. I've got I'm working on my lineup for season 2, so I could use some interesting stuff to talk about. In the meantime, I just want to kind of close here with, sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is to pause, to stop chasing every sign, stop chasing every message, every interpretation. Just stop long enough to simply hear yourself again. Awakening was never meant to pull us away from our humanity. It was meant to help us move through it with more awareness, with more compassion, and with more presence. So if things have gotten too loud for you lately, if your soul feels tired or overwhelmed, if you've stepped away for a while, maybe you're not lost at all. Maybe you're integrating. Maybe you're learning how to hold both the mystery of spirit and the grounded truth of being human at the same time. And if you find yourself reconnecting later, it won't be because you failed in your journey. It'll be because you've grown into a deeper relationship with it, a quieter one, a wiser one, a more balanced one. So remember, through all this, you're getting closer and closer to aligned AF every single day. Goodbye for now. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. If this episode spoke to you at all, share it with a friend or someone who needs it. You can also leave a review or connect with me online. You can find Aligned AF on YouTube, Facebook, your favorite podcast channel, or at alignedaf.org. And if you want to reach out directly, you can email me at alignedafpodcast@gmail.com. So until next time, stay aligned AF.